Hello everybody, today we are working on quadratic equations. We will be doing solving quadratic equation using factoring, square root property, and completing squares. We will also talk about discriminant and how we use discriminant for several things and one application problem. So this is my general form of the quadratic equation: ax squared plus bx plus c. A, b, c are real numbers and we're going to make them equal 0. So let's do the first example here, and you have to be really careful on this one. 2x squared plus x equal 1. So when you have something like this, then you make sure that you change it to general form like this, and then I'm going to change that. It will be 2x squared plus x minus 1 equals 0. I changed it. Now how do I factor this? Guys, if you have this coefficient in front of this x squared, then this one is gonna be something like you really need to work on it, like a few steps extra, but you will get the answer. It's not hard. So let's try this, okay? You're gonna find out the factors of 2x squared. So I know 2 factors is 2 times 1, which is 2. So I would say 2x and there is 1x. And the factor of 1 is going to be negative 1 and positive 1. I know negative 1 times 1 is going to give me negative 1. So how do we put them together? That is the problem, that how do we put them together? So I'm just going to randomly put them together and see if we get the right answer, okay? So how do we do that? That's 0. If I'm putting randomly, so I'll pick 2x, for example, and I would say, okay, let's do plus that 1, and then I have 1x here, and I would do minus 1. Now, there is different way to check if you did this right. The first thing is, like, for example, you can do like you can say do the distributive property, like 2x multiply with 1x, 2x multiply with negative 1, then 1 multiply with 1x, and then 1 multiply with negative 1, and see if I'm getting the original 2x squared plus x minus 1. That's one way. Another way, this is something like this. Now you're going to watch that. I'm going to make this equal 0. 2x plus 1 equals 0, and I'm going to make that equal 0. You know, I don't have to write that one. So this one is going to give me 2x equal negative 1. This is going to give me x equal positive 1. And now we can solve this further. That would be negative half. So I got x equal 1, and I got negative half x equal. So how do we use these x's to figure it out if the factor that we did is correct? So you're going to plug these in the original equation. You know my original equation is that one. If you get both sides of the equal same number, you are good, you did wonderful. But if not, then we're going to change the signs, like, and we're going to make this one negative, and we're going to make this negative half as positive. Okay, so let's try. I'm going to plug them in. So my original equation is 2x squared plus x equal 1. So I'm going to plug in negative half first. 2 negative half squared plus negative half equal 1. Okay, so if I do this, you know, I'm going to get 1/4 here, and that's a 2 times, and I got negative half equal 1. So you simplify this, you got half subtract half equal 1. You know this is 0 equal 1. This is not true. So no, these factors are wrong. If you want to try the 1, I'm not going to try 1, because if this is wrong, then 1 is automatically wrong. You can plug in 1 back there, you will see you're not getting the right answer. So what I did, I said, okay, let's change the x equal half in x equal negative 1. Let's do that. Okay, like I changed their signs, and we can go back and change those signs up here, like in this one make it minus, and this one make it okay, let's do that. Make this negative and make this positive. Like this is my positive half, right? And that one is gonna turn to negative 1. Like if I make them equal 0, you know I'm gonna get 2x minus 1 equals 0, and I can do x minus 1 equals 0. This one is going to give me, I'm sorry, positive. This is going to give me negative 1, and this is going to give me positive half, right? So the green one is right there. So I changed the signs. Now plug them back in the original. So I have 2 half squared, like up here, plus half equal 1. So we already solved this. It was 1/4, 1/2. So it's going to be 1/2 plus 1/2 equal 1. And yes, that works. You can plug in 1 there, like this negative 1. You will get the same, like both sides equal the same. So if I plug in 1, watch what happened here. 2x squared plus, I'm just writing my equation here because I don't want to look back and forth. So 2 negative 1 squared plus negative 1 equal 1. This is positive 2 minus 1 equal 1. It's going to give me 1 equal 1. Good. So by switching the signs, we are good. And like I said, the other way, you have to do the foiling, like you have to distribute. And if you get the same, this one, 2x squared plus x minus 1, you're good. If not, then you have to switch around the signs and stuff like that. So this is how we are solving the factoring problem. But if I don't have a coefficient like in the for x squared, and that would make it really easy, like it's really piece of cake. Okay, let's try. We did all of this checking, and we know our answers are, our factors are actually 2x minus 1 parentheses close, and this is wrong, by the way, because we changed the signs. So now I'm going to do it 2x minus 1, and I got 2x plus 1. There you go. That's my answer. Square root property. How do we solve the quadratic using a square root property? Now the square root is something like, for example, I have a question, 5x squared. This is part B. 5x squared plus 45 equals 0. Now for the square root, do you see you have only 2 terms there? Okay, so you're going to move this 5x squared, you're going to move the 45 here, and it's going to be negative 45, and you divide by 5 both sides. So I got x squared equal negative 9. And we know how to deal with negative square roots. We did the review on this. So that would be, you square root this. To get rid of the square root is the opposite operation. Like if we want to get rid of negative, we do positive something. Multiply, so we divide to get rid of or move them here and there. So this one cancel out. X equal this negative turn I, and I know square root of 9 is a perfect square. That would be 3i, but make sure it's positive negative 3i. Okay, because of the square root has 2 answers. So that's what I get here for the square root property. Now let's do completing square. That's part C. Completing square is, you just have to pay attention very closely. It's not that hard. I have x squared plus 4x minus 1 equals 0. If I have a question like this, and do you see this doesn't have the coefficient up here, but they want me to use the completing square. So you have to move all these non-zero numbers to the other side. So I'm gonna move that 1 here. And I have to have enough space after 4x, like you leave the space right there. So what do we do in completing square? This is positive, okay? So this is gonna be a positive. Then 4, you divide that 4 by 2. Always divide by 2, okay? Doesn't matter what number you have on the top, you have to divide by 2. And you're gonna square that. And I'm gonna do the same thing here, 4, 2, and you square. Whatever you do on this side, you have to do it on the other side. Now let's deal with that one. I have x squared plus 4x. How do I solve this? You're gonna have 4 divided by 2 is gonna give me 2. 2 square is 4, so that's 4. Now we're gonna go back, equal 1, and this is again 4, like plus 4. Okay, now let's solve this. I have x squared plus 4x plus 4 equal 5. Okay, now This side of the equation you can solve using your factoring. But do you see this factoring and that factoring is different because that was coefficient 2 and we had to check and see if it works. This one is going to be really good. You find the factors of 4, which is 2 times 2. You're going to find the factor of x, which is x and x. You know, I picked the factors of 4 like 2 and 2. Why I didn't pick 4 and 1? The reason is when you multiply these two, it's 2 times 2 is giving you 4. But when you add these two numbers, you get 4. This is important. But if you think I should do 4 and 1, then the factors of 4 is 4 times 1. But if I add 4 and 1, I'm not getting 4. If I subtract 4 and 1, I'm still not getting 4. So when you factor this number, these two numbers has to add or subtract to get the middle number. So in this case, I'm adding 2 and 2 to give me 4. So these are my factors and we are good to go. This one doesn't need checking because we already checking that I'm getting this number. And all the signs are positives. So I'm going to have both factors positive. Okay. Now, one x goes here, another x goes here. 2 and 2. Doesn't matter where it goes. You see that? When you have exactly the same these two terms, then make sure that you just write it down as a square like that, equal 5. Now I can apply my square root property, that one, to get rid of the square and get the x by itself. So I can square root that. I can also square root this. Okay, so this is gonna, this square and square root cancel, so I'm left with x plus 2 equal, and you have a square root 5. Square root 5 is not a perfect square anyway. So you're going to subtract 2 both sides. So like this, subtract 2, and this one is positive by the way. Negative 2 plus square root 5. And make sure when I do the square root 5, you know this is going to be a positive or negative, right? Because of the square root thing. Okay, so that's my x values right there. Now let's use, now we are going to use quadratic formula to solve the quadratic formula. What is quadratic formula? Just watch what the thing is. X equal 2a. Actually, quadratic formula is so cool because you can solve any type of question. Do you see this question like that one? You can also use a quadratic formula. You can use a quadratic formula. You can use a quadratic formula on any question and you can solve that. But the formula is negative b positive negative b square minus 4ac within the square root. This is a quadratic formula. Okay. Now, let's do one of the example for this. I have 2x squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 0. That's my question, and I'm using a quadratic formula for this. Remember, this coefficient in the front is kind of headache, so let's do quadratic formula. This is a, that's a b, that's a c. We have to do that, okay? So let's plug in everything since we already know our ABCs. So I have x equal, negative stays, what is b? B is 2, so that's 2. Positive negative stays there. Then I have that square root pretty. B is again positive 2, so I'm going to do 2 squared minus 4 stays. What is a? A is 2. What is c? C is negative 1. Do you see? Keep the signs, so negative 1. Everything within the square root. In the bottom, we have 2 in a. A is 2. We already know that one. Okay, that's what I got. So let's simplify this further. I'm going to write it down here. If I simplify, it's going to give me x equal negative 2, positive, negative. Let's do the inside first. That's 4. 2 times 2 within the square root. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 subtract times 1, negative 1 is negative 8. and then negative times negative is positive, so it's going to give me positive 8, right? And again in the bottom you have 2 times 2 is 4. Let's do it. Negative 2 positive negative 4 plus 8 is going to give me 12 square root divide by 4 again. Okay, now you know 12 is not a perfect square anyway. 12 is not. I'm going to move this question somewhere, the application problem, so we have space. I don't know which one I was using, probably that one. Okay, so x equal this. Now square root of 12 is not perfect, so we have to make sure that we factor out. So usually what I do, I tell my students to factor this 12 like on a scratch paper or something, because yeah, this is I don't want a messy work. So let's factor out 4 and 3. 4 times 3 is 12 in the square root. You know 4 is a perfect square. Times 4 is a perfect square. This is gonna go outside, 3 stays inside. So that's all I can do here. So let's try put this neat and clean, and that would be 2 square root 3 divided by 4. What else I can do here? Can I simplify this further? I think I can. Since it's one denominator, I can split the fraction, something like this. Negative 2 divided by 4, I have positive negative 2 square root 3 divided by 4. Do you see that? I can simplify this. So I'm getting x equal negative half, right? And this is still positive negative, and I still can simplify this. So this is going to be square root 3 over 2. You can rewrite this like it's going to be 2 negative 1 positive negative square root 3. So that's my answer. I can't do anything else with that. You can change it into a decimal, put it in a calculator, but I think you leave it alone. Okay, let's do the application problem here. Now, there is few things that I have to explain about the discriminant, then we will solve this problem. Let's do discriminant. Okay, what is discriminant actually? Discriminant is really important information, and it's really so cool if you guys discriminant. Okay, what is a discriminant? Discriminant in the quadratic equation is this portion under the square root. Okay, so my discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. You don't keep the square root, not the square root. Inside the square root, whatever we have, that is discriminant. Okay, how do we use a discriminant? Discriminant is the quadratic equation of the quadratic equation determines the number and type of solutions. So this discriminant only will give me numbers and type of solutions. Like I have infinite solutions, I have one solution, I have many solutions, all of that stuff. Okay, so let's try this, and I'm going to write down some important information here, so make sure that you write it down in your notebook. And remember, first, if the discriminant is positive, okay, is positive, then there will be two unequal real solutions. Okay, second, if the discriminant is 0, okay, that's important, is 0, there is one real repeated solution. Third, if the discriminant is negative, again negative, there are two imaginary solutions. There are two imaginary solutions. Okay, so let's try some of the thing. I have a question up here. That's an example right there. If I have, for example, 2x squared minus 7x minus 4 equals 0, the question is asking, compute the discriminant, and determine the number and type of solutions. Okay, so what is my discriminant here? You already know discriminant is like, this is a, that's b, that's c, and my discriminant is b squared minus 4ac. So let's plug in here. B is negative 7, so keep the signs, guys, remember that. Minus 4, a is 2, c is negative 4. Let's try what we get here. Okay, this is 49 positive, and negative 8, 4 times 2 is negative 8 times negative 4. It's going to give me 49 plus 32. My answer is 81. Okay, so we got positive answer. So if it's positive, there will be two unequal real solutions. Okay, you can say there are just two real solutions. I mean, it's okay. You don't have to say unequal. So you can say there are, the discriminant is 81, positive number. There are two real solutions. 2 means two real solutions. So there are two real solutions. That's how we decide about the discriminant. Okay, now let's do this word problem, guys. The word problem is, the formula is this: models a woman's normal systolic blood pressure P at age A. So remember I said, this is important that you know your variables. P means blood pressure, like a systolic blood pressure, and A is your age, woman age. Use this formula to find the age to the nearest year of woman whose normal systolic blood pressure is 115. So what is this 115? That's a P. And they're asking find the age, which means I have to figure it out, the A. Okay, so now it's good to go. I just have to plug in all the stuff there. So this is my equation, 0.0, and I'm going to write down the equation, and I will plug in my 115 there. 107. Plug in 115 for P, 0.01a squared plus 0.05a plus 107. Now I can do, before I use my quadratic formula, I'll just make sure. And guys, I always use a quadratic formula for when I have this coefficient in the beginning of any square, x square, a square, whatever the square is. So I always use, because I don't want to waste time. 107 and 115. So it's going to give me, I'm going to make it equal 0 everything, the whole equation, 5a. Subtract 115 both sides, I'm going to get negative 8 equals 0. There you go. Now we already know this is A, B, and C. Can you see that? Okay, so let's try. Quadratic formula. Our quadratic formula is x equal, I can write the quadratic formula one more time here. Negative b, positive negative b square minus 4ac, which is our discriminant. And make sure discriminant is, when you use the discriminant to find the solutions, don't use the square root. That's 2a. So x equal b is 0.05. Positive, negative, and this is negative, by the way, that stays. Then I have a square root, and inside the square root we have a b, which is 0.05 squared minus 4. Very careful when you plug in the numbers in any kind of equations. If you plug them in wrong, your whole thing is wrong. A is 0.01, C is -8. And in the bottom, I have 2 times A, which is 0.01. Okay, I plugged in everything and I checked again. I'm careful. Everything looks good to me. Then let's solve. X equal -0.05, positive, negative. This is going to give me, when you square them, use a calculator, then it's going to give me 0.0025. This is positive, negative times negative is going to give me positive, and when you multiply all these three numbers, it's going to give you 0.32, and these are in square root. In the bottom, when you multiply these two, you're going to get 0.02. Okay, now add these together. In the next step, I have x equal -0.05, positive, negative. When you add these, you get 0.3225 over 0.02. Okay, let's try to get the square root thing. Let's do, okay, I have to do -0.05, positive, negative. What is the square root of this? Again, plug it in the calculator. This is not something we can do without a calculator. I mean, you can if you want to, but I don't want to. 568. When I get the square root of this, then I have 0.02. All you have to do, since I have positive and negative, then you just pay attention here. I'm going to solve this whole thing with positive ones and with negative again. So let's do with positive first. -0.05, positive 0.568, divide by 0.02. My answer is approximately 25.9. Then I'm going to do one more time with negative 0.05 minus 0.568 over 0.02, approximately -30.9. So I got my answer. Okay, now the positive solution, this is positive and that's negative, and since they're asking for the age part, so the positive solution, A equal 26, I'm rounding up this, indicates that 26 is the approximate age of a woman whose normal systolic blood pressure is 115. I'm not going to pick negative because age cannot be negative, so I just did this. So 26 includes that 26 is the approximate, I'm just going to write approximate age of a woman whose blood pressure is 115. Systolic blood pressure is 115 mm. I'm just writing my units with it. Okay, that's all. Okay, if you guys have any question, write down in the comments and we will work together. And also, if I made a mistake somewhere, just talk to me, and subscribe my channel, please. It would help me out. Thank you so much. Bye.